In the heart of the Appalachian wilderness, 12-year-old Elijah Mason lives a life far removed from modern civilization. Raised by his reclusive grandfather after his parents' death, he knows every tree, stream, and creature that calls these mountains home. One misty dawn, while tracking deer through an uncharted valley, Elijah discovers smoke rising from a hidden ravine. Curiosity draws him closer to find a thriving native village, seemingly untouched by time. Ancient dwellings, traditional ceremonies, and wisdom passed through generations. The villagers regard him with a mixture of caution and recognition, as though they've been expecting him. An elder approaches, weathered hands outstretched, offering a carved totem that seems to pulse with unseen energy. What secrets does this mysterious village hold about Elijah's own forgotten past? The sun breaks through pine branches, casting dappled light across a small cabin nestled against the mountainside. Smoke curls from a stone chimney. Inside, Elijah Mason stirs beneath a patchwork quilt, his eyes opening to the familiar scent of wood smoke and coffee. "Daylight's burning, boy," calls Samuel from the kitchen. Elijah's grandfather, 73 with weathered skin like tanned leather, stands at the iron stove. His grey beard reaches mid-chest, but his movements remain precise, deliberate. Elijah dresses quickly in worn jeans and a flannel shirt passed down and mended countless times. At 12, he's tall for his age, lean from mountain living and labor. His dark hair falls past his shoulders, Samuel's clumsy trims, with hunting shears the only barber he's known. "Traps need checking," Samuel says, sliding a plate of venison and eggs toward Elijah. "North Creek's been good this week. Their conversation is sparse, efficient. 6 years living alone together has worn away the need for unnecessary words." Elijah eats while Samuel unfolds a hand-drawn map on the table, adding notations in the margins. "Thought I might explore West Ridge today," Elijah suggests. Watching his grandfather carefully, Samuel's pen pauses. "Nothing worth seeing that way? Better stick to the North Creek." The boy nods, noting the familiar tension. Samuel's journal sits open beside the map, leather-bound, pages yellowed with age. Elijah glimpses strange symbols and sketches before Samuel closes it. Outside, morning mist clings to the valley below. Their cabin sits at 3,000 feet, far from the nearest road, accessible only by a narrow trail. Twice yearly, they travel to a small town for supplies they can't hunt, grow, or make. Those rare visits are Elijah's only contact with the outside world. He shoulders his pack, checking his knife and the small bow Samuel crafted for his 10th birthday. The older man watches from the porch, a concerned shadow crossing his features. "Be back before dark," Samuel calls. Weather feels changeable. The forest embraces Elijah like an old friend. He moves with practiced silence, reading the woods as others read books. A disturbed patch of moss reveals a deer passed recently. Bent twigs suggest direction. The boy tracks without conscious thought, his senses attuned to the mountain's language. His mind drifts to fragments of memory. His mother's singing voice, his father's laugh. Their faces grow dimmer with each passing year. The accident when he was 6, the word Samuel always uses, claimed them both, leaving only photographs and stories that his grandfather shares with increasing rarity. The North Creek yields 2 rabbits from traps. Elijah resets them with practiced hands, giving silent thanks as his grandfather taught him. Nothing wasted, nothing taken without gratitude. Midday finds him perched on a rocky outcrop, sketching in a small notebook. The valley unfolds below, the distant haze of the town barely visible. Beyond lies a world he's read about in the books Samuel brings from their supply runs. Cities with millions. Technology advancing faster than Samuel can explain. "We need nothing they have," his grandfather often says. But Elijah wonders. Returning to the cabin, he detours past the small clearing where 2 wooden crosses stand. He kneels briefly, clearing fallen leaves. "Hey, Mom, hey, Dad," he whispers, the ritual unchanged since childhood. Back at the cabin, Samuel examines the rabbits with approval. "A good clean kills," he nods. "You've got your father's eyes for tracking. These rare mentions of his parents are precious." Elijah helps prepare the rabbits for stew. working alongside his grandfather in comfortable silence. As evening falls, Samuel retrieves a wooden box from beneath floorboards, opening it to reveal old photographs. A ritual saved for special days. Today marks his parents' anniversary. Elijah studies his mother's smiling face, her dark eyes matching his own. His father stands tall beside her, arm protective around her shoulders. She was special, Samuel says softly. New things about these mountains most folks forget. What things? Elijah asks. Samuel hesitates, then simply says, old ways. He turns to another photograph, but stops suddenly, tucking it away before Elijah can see. That's enough remembering for tonight. Later, by firelight, Samuel checks his journal, adding notes, while Elijah reads a dog-eared copy of Jack London. The boy's eyes drift to the western window, toward the ridge his grandfather warned against. Something calls from that direction, a feeling he can't explain. Grandfather, Elijah begins carefully, are there other people in these mountains? Samuel's pen stills. Why do you ask? Just wondering. Just us and a few hermits who keep to themselves, Samuel answers too quickly. Best that way. As Elijah drifts toward sleep, moonlight spills across the cabin floor. Through his window, the western ridge stands silhouetted against stars. Something waits there, something important. Tomorrow, he decides, he'll find out what. Dawn breaks with a thin drizzle that beads on pine needles and soaks into moss. Samuel's knee is bothering him, an old injury that forecasts weather better than any barometer. No tracking today, he tells Elijah over breakfast. Rain will wash everything away. Elijah nods, disappointed but understanding. I'll split more firewood instead. Samuel eyes him carefully. Good lad. I need to rest this leg. Might doze by the fire. The morning passes with the rhythmic thunk of axe meeting wood. By midday, the rain has stopped, sunlight breaking through clouds. Elijah glances toward the cabin, where his grandfather has indeed fallen asleep in his chair. Decision made, he quietly gathers his pack. The western ridge calls to him, a curiosity he can no longer ignore. He leaves a note, checking the far traps. Back by sunset. The lie sits uncomfortably, but Samuel's unexplained restrictions feel increasingly arbitrary. 12 years old is nearly grown in mountain terms. He moves swiftly through familiar territory, then slows as the landscape changes. The western forest is older, trees massive with age, undergrowth thinner. Moss hangs from branches like green beards, catching light in emerald flashes. A deer trail offers easy passage upward. Strange, though, the tracks look odd. Elijah kneels, examining the impressions. Not just deer, but something else following them. Not wolf or bear, something different. The stride is wrong, the print familiar yet altered. He follows cautiously, senses heightened. The forest seems to watch him. Twice he turns, certain someone stands behind him, but finds only trees and shadows. Near the ridge summit, Elijah freezes. Something glints among fallen leaves. He kneels, brushing aside forest debris to reveal a broken arrowhead unlike any he's seen. Not the flint point Samuel has shown him from early settlers, but something older. The remaining portion bears intricate carvings, spiraling patterns that seem to shift when he turns it in his hand. Pocketing the find, he continues upward. The ridge offers a view he's never seen, a hidden valley cradled between mountain spurs. From this vantage, nothing appears unusual until he spots a thin column of smoke rising from trees far below, precisely placed to remain invisible from all directions, except this exact spot. People, he whispers. Descending toward the smoke proves challenging. The slope steepens into near-cliff faces with narrow game trails winding between. As he picks his path carefully downward, an unsettling sensation grows, eyes watching, evaluating. Halfway down, a sound stops him. Not quite birdsong, not quite whistle. He freezes, scanning the forest. Nothing moves. The broken arrowhead in his pocket seems suddenly warmer. He touches it through the fabric, and the strange sensation intensifies. A movement ahead, so quick he nearly misses it. A flash of color unlike forest browns and greens. He advances cautiously. The trail widens into a small clearing where it abruptly stops at a rock face covered in vines. The smoke must come from beyond, but no passage is visible. Frustrated, Elijah examines the cliff. The vines appear deliberately arranged, not natural growth. He pulls gently at a section, revealing not solid rock behind, but empty space. Heart pounding, he parts the green curtain. A narrow passage winds between boulders. The smoke smell strengthens, along with something else, cooking food, unfamiliar spices. The passage turns sharply, then opens suddenly. Elijah stumbles, catching himself against stone. Before him lies a hidden valley in miniature, a perfectly concealed ravine with a small stream running through its center. And beside the stream, structures unlike anything he's seen outside of books. Dwellings built partly into the hillside, roofs of carefully arranged wood and what appears to be clay. A central fire pit with the smoke he'd spotted being funneled through a clever stone chimney designed to disperse it. Gardens in careful rows, and people, perhaps 24 visible, dressed in clothing both practical and adorned with unfamiliar patterns. They haven't noticed him. Partially concealed as he remains in the passage shadow, these aren't hermits or hunters. This is an entire community, hidden from the world. Their features remind him of pictures he's seen of Native Americans in Samuel's few books. Yet something about them seems different, as if from another time entirely. A child's laugh echoes across the ravine. The first child besides himself he's heard in years. The sound draws him forward unconsciously. The broken arrowhead in his pocket now feels hot enough that he must remove it. As he holds it in his palm, sunlight catches the carvings, making them seem to move like living things. A sudden silence falls. Elijah looks up to find every person in the village has stopped and turned toward him, as if the arrowhead itself has announced his presence. An older man steps forward from the others, his gaze fixed not on Elijah's face, but on the broken arrow in his open hand. Time seems to freeze as Elijah stands exposed, the broken arrowhead in his palm. The village people remain motionless, their expressions a mixture of surprise, wariness, and something else. Recognition. Instinct tells him to run. Grandfather's warnings echo in his mind. Instead, he slowly closes his fingers around the arrowhead and waits. The older man, approaching him, wears a vest adorned with intricate beadwork over practical clothing, deerskin pants, and a cotton shirt that could have been made a century ago or yesterday. His grey-streaked hair hangs in 2 braids, and his weathered face shows lines of both laughter and concern. Behind him, the villagers whisper to each other in a language Elijah doesn't recognize. Yet something about its cadence seems vaguely familiar, like a forgotten dream. When the man reaches the halfway point between them, he stops. His deep-set eyes study Elijah with uncomfortable intensity. Then he speaks, a single word, questioning. Elijah shakes his head. "I don't understand." The man tilts his head, considering. "Who are you, mountain boy?" He finally asks in accented but clear English. "Elijah," he answers, surprised. "Elijah Mason." The name ripples through the watching crowd. The man's eyes widen slightly, then narrow. "Mason," he repeats carefully. "Samuel's grandson." Now it's Elijah's turn to be shocked. "You know my grandfather?" The man doesn't answer directly. Instead, he extends an open hand. "I am Neshoba, scout for our people. The Arrow clan." Elijah hesitates, then extends his own hand, still clutching the arrowhead. Neshoba glances at Elijah's closed fist. "May I see what you found?" Slowly, Elijah opens his palm. The broken arrowhead catches sunlight, its carvings seeming to pulse. Neshoba inhales sharply. He speaks rapidly to the others in their language. An older woman steps forward, her silver hair bound in a complex braid. She says something urgent, pointing toward Elijah. "What's happening?" Elijah asks, anxiety rising. "What is this?" He holds up the arrowhead. "Something lost long ago," Neshoba says carefully. "Something that belongs here." The older woman approaches, her movements deliberate. Despite her age, she stands straight, her gaze penetrating. She examines Elijah's face rather than the artifact, as if searching for something in his features. She speaks to Neshoba, who nods. Kayla says you have your mother's eyes, he translates. Elijah steps back. My mother? You knew my mother? The woman, Carla, reaches into a pouch at her waist and produces something that makes Elijah's heart skip. Another arrowhead, identical to the broken piece he holds, but complete. The lost half, Neshoba says. Found by the lost son. Confusion and discovery war within Elijah. I don't understand. My parents died when I was 6, in an accident. Carla speaks again, her voice soft but firm. She says your mother was daughter to our people, Neshoba translates. Left to walk in the outside world. We mourned her passing. A young man pushes through the crowd, speaking rapidly and gesturing toward the mountain passes. Neshoba responds sharply, then turns back to Elijah. Some think you should not be here. That you bring danger. I didn't mean to intrude, Elijah says, suddenly conscious of his trespassing. I can leave. No, Kayla interrupts in heavily accented English. You found the arrow. The way was shown to you. She reaches into her pouch again, removing a single eagle feather. With ceremonial gravity, she offers it to Elijah. This is rare honor, Neshoba explains. A token of peace and recognition. Elijah accepts the feather carefully. Thank you, but I still don't understand. If you knew my mother, why has my grandfather never mentioned this place? Why keep it secret from me? Pain flashes across Neshoba's features. That question is for Samuel Mason, not us. The young man speaks again, urgently pointing to the sky. The sun has begun its western descent. You should return home, Neshoba says. Before darkness, before you are missed. But I have so many questions, Elijah protests. Kyla steps forward, taking his hand that still holds the broken arrowhead. She places her complete arrowhead beside it, showing how they once fit together. Then she separates them again, returning her piece to her pouch, but closing his fingers around the broken half. Keep, she says in English. Return tomorrow. She offers you invitation, Neshoba explains. To come back, to learn. If you wish, Elijah nods slowly. I'll come back. Neshoba's expression remains guarded, but he nods in return. I will guide you to the boundary. He gestures toward the hidden passage. Safer that way. As they walk, the village behind them erupts in animated discussion. Elijah catches his name spoken several times. At the forest edge, Neshoba points toward a path different from the one Elijah descended. This way is quicker to your cabin. Elijah hesitates. How do you know where I live? Neshoba's expression reveals nothing. We have always known. The mountains have few secrets. But you were secret from me, Elijah counters. A hint of a smile touches Neshoba's lips. Until today. He nods toward the feather in Elijah's hand. That marks you as friend. Return tomorrow if you wish to learn more. With that, the scout melts back into the forest, leaving Elijah holding an eagle feather, a broken arrowhead, and more questions than he'd had his entire life. Elijah returns to the cabin just before sunset, his mind swimming with questions. Samuel sits on the porch, whittling a piece of pine, his face tight with worry that softens at the sight of his grandson. Was about to come looking, he says gruffly. Found the traps empty. The lie Elijah left in his note now requires another. Nothing worth bringing back, he answers, carefully tucking the eagle feather inside his jacket. The western hills aren't good hunting ground. Samuel's eyes narrow slightly. Western hills? Thought you were checking the North Creek traps. Elijah freezes, caught in his deception. I decided to explore a bit. Told you there's nothing worth seeing that way, Samuel says, voice carefully neutral. Just dangerous terrain. Seemed peaceful enough to me, Elijah replies, watching his grandfather closely. Samuel returns to his whittling, but his knife strokes are sharper, more agitated. Best stick to areas we know. Mountains can fool you. That night, sleep eludes Elijah. The broken arrowhead and eagle feather rest beneath his pillow. When dawn finally breaks, he rises quietly, dresses, and slips into the kitchen to gather food. Going somewhere? Samuel's voice startles him. Elijah turns to find his grandfather seated at the table, as if he's been waiting for hours. Perhaps he has. Thought I'd check those North Creek traps properly today. Elijah says, the half-truth bitter on his tongue. Samuel studies him with eyes that miss nothing. Be careful out there. Trust your instincts if something doesn't feel right. The warning feels pointed, loaded with unspoken meaning. Elijah nods and shoulders his pack, unable to meet his grandfather's gaze. The journey to the hidden ravine takes half the time now that he knows the path. Neshoba waits at the boundary as if expecting him. "You returned," the scout says, neither surprised nor particularly pleased. "I have questions," Elijah responds. Neshoba nods once. Most do. The hidden passage through the vines seems less concealed today, as if the forest itself has decided to reveal its secrets. The ravine beyond bustles with morning activity, women tending gardens, men crafting tools, children carrying water from the stream. They notice his arrival immediately. The children stop and stare openly, while adults cast sidelong glances before returning to their tasks with deliberate nonchalance. Our village has stood in this protected place for many generations, Neshoba explains as they walk. The Arrow clan has kept the old ways when others abandoned them. The structures reveal themselves as sophisticated dwellings now that Elijah sees them up close, partially subterranean for insulation, with timber frames and walls of clay mixed with fiber for strength. Some are adorned with painted symbols, matching those on the broken arrowhead. "How many people live here?" Elijah asks, trying to count the dwellings. 43, Neshoba answers precisely. "Once we were many more. At the center of the village, a fire burns in a stone-lined pit. Unlike the cooking fires scattered throughout the settlement, this flame occupies a place of obvious importance. 2 elders tend it, adding wood with ceremonial care. The sacred fire," Neshoba says, his voice dropping to a respectful murmur. "It has burned without interruption since our ancestors first came to this valley. To let it die would mean the end of our people." A tall, broad-shouldered man approaches. His clothing includes ceremonial elements, a beaded chest plate over a simple shirt, hair adorned with feathers similar to the one given to Elijah. "Chief Ahote," Neshoba introduces with a respectful nod. The chief studies Elijah intently before speaking. Samuel Mason's grandson stands before us. The circle completes itself. Before Elijah can question this cryptic statement, a young girl approximately his age appears at the chief's side. Her resemblance to Ahote is unmistakable. The same high cheekbones and resolute expression, though her eyes hold curiosity rather than caution. "My daughter, Kimmy," the chief says. "She will show you our ways while the council gathers." Kimmy steps forward, her initial shyness quickly replaced by open interest. "You're from outside," she says in perfect, unaccented English. "What is it like there?" "I live in the mountains too," Elijah explains. "Not so different, just alone, just my grandfather and me." Something like sympathy crosses her face. "No other children? No cousins or friends?" Elijah shakes his head, suddenly conscious of his isolation in a way he'd never been before. Kimmy glances at her father, who nods permission. "Come," she says, "I'll show you our home." As they walk through the village, Elijah notices details missed earlier. Intricate baskets storing dried foods, tools combining ancient designs with practical innovations, medicinal plants drying in carefully organized bundles. "How do you remain hidden?" he asks. "Airplanes fly over these mountains sometimes. The ravine protects us," Kimi explains. "And we have ways to know when outsiders approach, ways to remain unseen." She taps her temples significantly. "Not all paths can be seen with eyes." They pass an elder grinding corn using a stone metate, her hands moving in the same rhythmic motion Elijah has seen in his grandfather's when sharpening tools. The familiarity sends an unexpected pang through him. "I feel like I've been here before," he admits quietly. Kimmy stops walking, her expression serious beyond her years. "Perhaps you have, in the ways that matter. Your mother walked these paths." The sacred fire casts dancing shadows across the village center as the council assembles. Elijah watches, a strange sense of belonging washing over him, and with it, the first whisper of understanding about what his grandfather has kept hidden all these years. Throughout the afternoon, Elijah explores the village with Kimmy as his guide. She shows him the gardens, where plants grow in careful companion arrangements, the stream where ingenious stone channels direct water, and the workshops where villagers craft everything from baskets to bows. You make everything yourselves? Elijah asks, watching an elder shape clay into a pot. Almost everything, Kimmy answers. We trade rarely and only with trusted outsiders. Like my grandfather. The question slips out before he can stop it. Kimmy's expression clouds. I cannot speak of that. The council must decide what you should know. As the sun begins its descent, a palpable shift occurs in the village atmosphere. Children are gathered into dwellings. Adults finish daily tasks with unusual haste. The sacred fire is built higher by ceremonial attendants. What's happening? Elijah asks. The evening ceremony, Kimmy explains. We honor the day's passing and seek wisdom for tomorrow. Should I leave? Elijah glances toward the hidden path. Kimmy looks surprised. No, the council wishes you to attend. It is significant that you are here today. Neshoba approaches with a bundle of clothing in his arms. For the ceremony, he explains, offering it to Elijah. If you wish to participate, the bundle contains a simple shirt adorned with subtle symbols matching those on the broken arrowhead and a vest, similar to those worn by other young men in the village. You don't have to, Kimmy says, noting his hesitation. But it would be respectful, Elijah nods. I'd like to. He changes behind a screen of woven reeds, emerging to find Neshoba waiting with a small bowl of earth-toned pigment. For your face, the scout explains. The marks of welcome. Neshoba applies the paint with practiced precision, a single line across the forehead, small symbols at each temple. When he finishes, Kimmy smiles approvingly. Now you don't look so. Outside, she says, villagers gather around the sacred fire as twilight deepens. Elijah sits cross-legged between Kimmy and Neshoba, acutely aware of curious glances. Chief Ahote stands opposite, his ceremonial attire more elaborate now, with additional feathers and beadwork. Carla, the elder who gave Elijah the eagle feather, takes a position near the chief. In her hands, she holds a drum unlike any Elijah has seen, shallow, wide, covered with stretched hide decorated with painted symbols. The gathering falls silent as Carla raises the drum. Her first strike resonates through the ravine like a heartbeat. She continues a slow, mesmerizing rhythm that seems to match the pulse in Elijah's veins. The storyteller's drum, Kimmy whispers. It calls to those who listen with more than ears. Other drummers join gradually, creating complex patterns within the foundation Carla established. The fire leaps higher with each passing moment, as if responding to the drums. Chief Ahote raises his hands, and the drumming softens to a gentle undercurrent. We gather as one people, he begins, to remember who we are and what we protect. His words flow between English and the clan's language, a bridge between worlds that Elijah finds himself mysteriously able to follow, catching meanings that should be foreign to him. Ahote gestures toward Elijah. Tonight we have among us one who carries old blood, one who found the path when it was not shown to him. The broken arrowhead in Elijah's pocket seems to grow warmer. The drumming intensifies slightly. Carla steps forward, the storyteller's drum cradled in her arms. She begins a chant that rises and falls like wind through mountain pines. As she speaks, Elijah sees images forming in the fire, or perhaps in his mind, a woman with his eyes walking away from the village, a storm on the mountain, a child being carried through darkness, his grandfather, younger but recognizable, making marks on trees that match those on the arrowhead. What is this? He whispers to Kimmy. The story speaks differently to each person, she answers. What do you see? Before he can respond, the drumming changes tempo. Carla's chant grows more intense. The fire casts shadows that seem to dance with purpose rather than chance. A strange sensation builds within Elijah, connection to something vast yet intimate. The boundaries between himself, the fire, the drums, and the mountain seem to blur. For a fleeting moment, he feels as though he can sense every tree and stone in the ravine, every heartbeat around the fire. Then Kayla strikes the drum one final, resounding time. Silence falls. The strange awareness recedes, leaving Elijah disoriented. "Breathe," Neshoba murmurs. The first experience is always strongest. The ceremony continues with stories and songs, but nothing matches the intensity of that initial moment. As the fire burns lower, food is shared. Simple fare made extraordinary by herbs Elijah has never tasted. Later, as the gathering begins to disperse, Chief Ahote approaches. "The hour grows late," he says. "Will you return to your grandfather tonight or accept our hospitality?" Elijah thinks of Samuel waiting, worrying. "I should go back." The chief nods, unsurprised. "Neshoba will guide you safely." His hand rests briefly on Elijah's shoulder. "Return when you can. There is much to learn." As Elijah prepares to leave, Kayla approaches with the storyteller's drum. She places Elijah's hand upon it, speaks words he somehow understands. "The drum knows you now, and you it." Walking home through moonlit forest, the ceremony's effects linger like music heard from a distance. Elijah touches the dried paint on his face, the borrowed clothes he still wears, tangible proof that what he experienced was real. Yet how to explain any of it to his grandfather? The cabin windows glow amber against the night as Elijah approaches. He'd scrubbed the ceremonial paint from his face in a cold stream and changed back to his own clothes. But he feels fundamentally altered, as if the evening ceremony has rewoven something in his being. He pauses at the tree line, heart pounding. Deception has never been his way with Samuel. Yet how to explain where he's been, what he's seen? The porch boards creak under his weight. Before his hand reaches the door, it swings open. Samuel stands, silhouetted against the firelight, his frame filling the doorway. The relief in his eyes quickly hardens to something else. Suspicion, perhaps, or fear. 8 hours, Elijah. Where were you for 8 hours? I'm sorry, grandfather. I lost track of time. Samuel's gaze is penetrating. Your hair smells of wood smoke. Not our fire. Elijah swallows hard. I found something, grandfather. Something you've kept from me. The old man's face remains impassive, but his knuckles whiten where he grips the door. Inside, he says finally. This isn't a conversation for open air. The cabin's familiar warmth feels strange now, like returning to a childhood home as an adult. Samuel moves to the hearth, stokes the fire with unnecessary force. When he turns, his expression is guarded. You found the village, not a question. Elijah nods, relief and fresh anger mingling at the confirmation. You knew? All this time you knew they were there. Of course I knew. Samuel sinks into his chair. I've known since before you were born. They knew my mother. Samuel flinches as if struck. They would say that. Was it true? A long silence. Samuel rises, moves to the corner cabinet, and retrieves a wooden box Elijah has never seen before. It's carved with symbols matching those on the broken arrowhead, worn smooth with handling. Your mother was born Sarah Blackfeather, daughter to the Arrow clan. Samuel's voice is flat, emotionless. She left the village at 18, met your father in town, never looked back. But why keep this from me? They're my family too. Samuel's face darkens. They're dangerous, Elijah. Not in ways you'd understand. They welcomed me. They knew who I was. Of course they did. Bitterness edges his tone. They've been watching, waiting. For what? Samuel doesn't answer directly. Instead, he opens the wooden box, removes a small leather pouch worn with age. This was your mother's, her medicine bundle. Elijah accepts it with trembling hands. The leather is soft, decorated with faded beadwork. Inside, he finds small objects. A carved stone bear, a piece of turquoise, dried herbs whose scent triggers some distant memory. She carried this always, Samuel continues, voice softening. Said it connected her to her ancestors, to the old powers. What powers? Samuel shakes his head. The Arrow clan believes they're different, special. They think they can sense things others can't, influence the natural world. Speak to spirits. He spits the last word. During the ceremony, I felt something, Elijah admits. When they played the storyteller's drum, I saw things. Mother, you when you were younger. Samuel's face pales. They used the drum on you? Already? He rises suddenly, paces the small room. I should have known. They're rushing things. Rushing what? Grandfather, please, your bloodline, boy. The Arrow clan believes certain families carry stronger connections. Your mother's line was one. They've been isolated so long, breeding within their small group. A fresh bloodline with the old talents. That's valuable to them. You're not making sense. They just wanted to share their ceremony. Nothing is just anything with them. Samuel stops pacing, fixes Elijah with a hard stare. Your mother died running from what they wanted from her. From what they would want from you. The statement lands like a physical blow. My parents died in an accident. The truck went off the road in a storm. The storm wasn't natural. Samuel's voice drops. Nothing about that night was natural. A chill runs through Elijah despite the fire's warmth. What are you saying? Samuel sits heavily, suddenly looking every one of his 73 years. Some in the village, and not all but some. They wanted you back after your mother died. Said you belonged with them? I disagreed. His hand drifts unconsciously to an old scar on his forearm. Vigorously. They tried to take me. They tried. I brought you here instead, where their influence is weakest. Elijah struggles to reconcile the gentle people he met with Samuel's dark implications. Chief Ahote seemed honorable. Gimi and Nashoba were kind. Ahote's father was a good man. Maybe the son is too. But others. Samuel shakes his head. The old beliefs run deep. What beliefs? Samuel ignores the question. You can't go back, Elijah. It's not safe. I promised I would. The words emerge before he can consider them. Samuel's expression hardens. Then you've already given them what they wanted. A foot in the door. He rises, retrieves his journal from the shelf, and opens it to reveal pages of symbols matching those in the village. I've spent years keeping their influence at bay. These markings on the trees around our property, they're not decoration. They're boundaries. Against what? Against what they can do when they set their minds to it. Samuel closes the journal with finality. You're not going back. That's final. Elijah feels the weight of the eagle feather in his pocket, the memory of connections formed. I need to understand what this means for me. Who I am. You're my grandson, Samuel says fiercely. That's who you are. The silence between them stretches, filled with unspoken words. Finally, Elijah rises. I'm tired, grandfather. I need to sleep. Samuel nods. The argument paused, but far from resolved. We'll talk more tomorrow. In his bed, Elijah clutches his mother's medicine pouch, inhaling its faint herbal scent. Outside his window, the western ridge is a dark silhouette against the night sky. Somewhere beyond it, the sacred fire still burns, waiting. Dawn breaks with a heavy mist clinging to the mountainside. Elijah wakes early, having barely slept. His mother's medicine pouch rests on his chest, the contents now returned inside. Samuel's revelations spin through his mind like autumn leaves caught in a whirlwind. In the kitchen, his grandfather sits at the table, red-eyed from what appears to be a similarly sleepless night. Made coffee, Samuel says. Nodding toward the pot, Elijah pours himself a cup, the bitter warmth a small comfort. I need to understand more, he begins carefully. About my mother. About the village. Samuel studies him over the rim of his mug. Some stones are better left unturned, boy. They're part of who I am. Part, Samuel emphasizes. Your father's blood runs in you too. And 16 years of my raising. I'm not denying that. Elijah sits across from him. But I've spent my life not knowing half of my history. The old man's face softens slightly. I did what I thought best. To protect you. I believe you, Elijah says. But I'm not a child anymore. Samuel's laugh holds no humor. 12 years makes you a man, does it? In the mountains you taught me it does. A long silence follows. Samuel rises stiffly, moves to the window. Outside, the mist has begun to lift, revealing the distant ridge. If I forbid you to go, he says finally, will you defy me? Elijah considers lying, then discards the thought. Yes, Samuel nods as if he expected nothing less. Then I won't waste my breath. He turns, his expression grave. But hear this, be on guard. Question everything they tell you. and be home by sundown. Every day, relief washes through Elijah. I will, and take this. Samuel retrieves a small knife from his belt, not his everyday tool, but one Elijah has seen him use only for special carving. Silver blade. My father's before me. Why, just keep it close. Samuel presses it into his hand. Some things don't favor silver. The cryptic warning hangs between them as Elijah departs. The knife secured in his boot beside his mother's medicine pouch. The journey to the hidden ravine feels different now, charged with purpose rather than curiosity. At the vine-covered passage, Elijah hesitates, then calls softly, Neshoba. The scout emerges from the forest so suddenly that Elijah startles. You returned, Neshoba observes. Despite your grandfather's wishes, you knew he wouldn't approve. Samuel Mason made his feelings about us clear long ago. Neshoba gestures toward the passage. Yet here you stand. I need to understand my mother's people. Then come. The morning meal awaits. Inside the ravine, the village hums with daily activity. Several people greet Elijah by name, their initial wariness noticeably diminished. Children watch him with undisguised curiosity. Kimmy appears, her face brightening. You came back. Father said you might not. My grandfather wasn't happy, Elijah admits. Samuel Mason has his reasons, she acknowledges. But you have yours. They settle near one of the cooking fires, where a woman ladles a fragrant porridge into wooden bowls. The food is simple but delicious. Corn porridge enriched with berries and nuts. What would you like to learn first? Kimmy asks between bites. Your language, Elijah decides. I want to understand when people speak. She smiles. A good beginning. The morning passes in linguistic lessons. Elijah discovers an unexpected aptitude for the Arrow clan's language. Certain words and phrases feeling already familiar, as if remembered rather than learned. You have an ear for it, Kimmy observes. Not surprising, since it's in your blood. By midday, Elijah can introduce himself and understand basic greetings. Kimmy leads him to the stream, where several women wash clothing using soap made from plants. My turn to ask questions, Kimmy says as they sit watching the water flow. What's it like, the outside world? I don't know much of it myself, Elijah admits. We live nearly as isolated as you do. But you have books? Electricity, the things of the modern world? Some. A generator for occasional use. Solar panels for basic needs. Books, yes. My grandfather believes in education. What do you learn about us? About native peoples? The question gives him pause. Very little, honestly. History books mention tribes, but as if they're all gone or changed. Nothing about places like this. We prefer it that way, she says softly. Invisibility has kept us safe. From what? Her expression grows serious. Those who would destroy what they don't understand. She reaches into a small pouch at her waist, removes a woven bracelet of intricate design, threads dyed with plant colors, small wooden beads carved with symbols. For you, she says, offering it, to help you walk between worlds. Elijah extends his wrist, allows her to tie it securely. What do the symbols mean? Protection, recognition. She finishes the knot. Friendship. The afternoon brings practical lessons, fire-making techniques, identifying plants with medicinal properties, crafting simple tools. Elijah absorbs it all eagerly, noting how some skills parallel those Samuel taught him, while others feel entirely new. As the sun begins its westward journey, Chief Ahote approaches. You honor us with your interest in our ways, he says formally. Thank you for allowing me to learn, Elijah responds. There is much more when you are ready. The chief's gaze is evaluating. Your mother was gifted in the old ways. That gift often passes through blood. Before Elijah can question this, he catches sight of the sun's position. I must return. I promised my grandfather. Ahote nods approvingly. Honoring one's word is the beginning of wisdom. He gestures toward Neshoba, who steps forward. Until tomorrow, then. Walking home, the bracelet secure around his wrist, Elijah feels a growing certainty. Whatever lies between his grandfather and the Arrow clan, whatever secrets remain untold, his path forward lies in bridging these two worlds. not choosing between them. Days blend into a new rhythm as Elijah divides his life between two worlds. Mornings begin with chores at the cabin, chopping wood, checking nearby traps, tending the small garden before he departs for the village. Evenings end with quiet meals alongside his grandfather, neither mentioning where Elijah spends his days. Samuel watches his grandson with a guarded expression that mixes concern with resignation. He asks no questions, but listens when Elijah volunteers innocent information, descriptions of basket-weaving techniques or medicinal plants. The deeper aspects of village life remain unmentioned between them. At the village, Elijah's knowledge grows exponentially. His facility with the Arrow clan's language progresses from basic phrases to rudimentary conversations. Under Kimmy's guidance, he learns to identify edible plants that Samuel never showed him, to move through forest with even greater stealth, to read weather patterns using subtle signs in clouds and wind. "You have the gift for listening," Kimmy tells him as they sit atop a high rock overlooking the ravine. "Not just to words, but to what speaks without voice." "My grandfather taught me to read the forest," Elijah says. "Samuel Mason knows much," she acknowledges. But some knowing comes from deeper places. On this particular morning, Kimmy leads him farther from the village than before, following the stream to where it widens into a small, clear pool surrounded by ancient stones. One massive boulder stands distinct from the others, tall, vaguely rectangular, with markings carved into its surface. "The boundary stone," Kimmy explains. "The first placed by our ancestors when they claimed this valley as sanctuary." Elijah runs his fingers over the weathered carvings, spirals, arrows, symbols that match those on his mother's medicine pouch. "How old is it?" "Many generations. Before the European arrival. How has the village remained hidden all this time?" Kimmy's expression grows serious. "Through vigilance, sacrifice, and through the old ways that keep us protected." She gestures to the stone. "Boundary markers like this one encircle our lands. They're not just markers, but guardians of a sort, like the symbols my grandfather carves on trees around our cabin." The words escape before Elijah can reconsider them. Kimmy's eyes widen. "Samuel Mason maintains protective markings? Interesting. He said they keep your influence away," Elijah admits. "What did he mean by that?" She studies him for a long moment. "Your grandfather fears what he doesn't fully understand. Our people have always had connections to the natural world that others lack. Ways of knowing, ways of influencing. He implied some in the village might have caused my parents' accident." Pain flashes across her face. "That happened before I was born, but I've heard the stories. There was conflict when your mother left. Some believed her gifts shouldn't leave the clan. But grandfather, Chief Ahote's father, supported her choice. And the accident? A terrible storm. A mountain road. Sometimes tragedy needs no deeper explanation." She touches his arm gently. "But grief seeks reasons, even where none exist." They walk in silence along the boundary. Elijah notices other stones, smaller but similarly marked, placed at intervals like sentinels. "My grandfather is getting worse," he says suddenly. His hands shake more each day. His breathing troubles him after exertion. "Has he seen doctors?" "Once yearly when we go for supplies." "He won't speak of what they tell him." Kimmy nods thoughtfully. "Perhaps there are remedies we know that might help. I could speak with our healers." He wouldn't accept them. "Pride is a poor companion to pain," she observes. When they return to the village, Elijah participates in his first hunt with Neshoba and other men. His tracking skills earn quiet approval, though his technique with their traditional bow requires adjustment. Later, Chief Ahote invites him to observe the council meeting, where village matters are discussed with measured deliberation. Elijah sits silently, absorbing their governance structure, noting how even those with disagreements speak with mutual respect. An elder addresses him directly in their language, asking what he's learned of their ways. Elijah responds haltingly but correctly, earning approving nods. After the council disperses, Chief Ahote speaks privately with him. "Your mother sat in these meetings from the time she could walk. The council recognized her wisdom even as a child. Samuel says little about her gifts. Samuel Mason chose a different path, one that acknowledges only what can be touched and seen. The chief's expression remains neutral, yet he carves out protection symbols. Interesting contradiction. As sunset approaches, Elijah reluctantly prepares for his daily departure. Kimmy walks with him to the boundary passage. "Tomorrow is our harvest ceremony," she tells him. "We give thanks for summer's bounty before preparing for winter. Will you join us?"
"I'll try."
"My grandfather needs help with our own preparations." She studies him with unusual intensity. "The first snow will come early this year. Both your homes should prepare. How do you know about the snow?" She smiles enigmatically. "I listen to what speaks without voice." At the cabin, Elijah finds Samuel on the porch, coughing painfully into a handkerchief. The old man quickly tucks it away when he notices his grandson, but not before Elijah glimpses bright red staining the fabric. "Good hunting today?" Samuel asks, voice rough. "Grandfather, you're sick." "Worse than you're letting on." Samuel waves dismissively. "Winter cough starting early. Nothing more. We should go to town. See the doctor. Waste of time and resources." Samuel's tone brooks no argument. "I know what's happening to me, boy." Known for some time, the implication hangs heavy in the evening air. There might be medicines, treatments. Elijah hesitates. "The village healers—" "No." Samuel's voice hardens. "I won't have their remedies, their ways." That night Elijah lies awake, the woven bracelet on his wrist catching moonlight through the window. Outside, wind whispers through trees marked with his grandfather's protective symbols. Inside, Samuel's occasional coughing punctuates the darkness. Two worlds, both now essential to him, both increasingly impossible to reconcile. The harvest ceremony transforms the village into a tapestry of activity and color. Elijah arrives early, having risen before dawn to complete his cabin chores and leave food prepared for Samuel. The old man had watched him go with knowing eyes, but offered no objection. In the village center, tables overflow with autumn's bounty: squash, corn, wild berries, venison, fish. Children run with excitement, their faces painted with symbols of abundance. Musicians play flutes and drums, their melodies carrying through the crisp morning air. Kimmy greets Elijah wearing ceremonial dress, a tunic adorned with intricate beadwork, her hair braided with colored threads and small feathers. "You came," she says, smiling. "I'm glad." The celebration continues through midday, feasting, dancing, stories shared by elders. Elijah participates hesitantly at first, then with growing comfort, as villagers include him naturally in their traditions. During a moment of rest, Carla approaches and sits beside him. The elder's weathered face holds a serene wisdom that reminds him somehow of his mother's photograph. "You have been with us many days now," she says in accented English, "learning our ways." "I have much still to learn," Elijah responds respectfully. "Some knowledge comes not from teaching, but from within." She studies him with penetrating eyes. "You feel it already, yes?" The stirring of old blood. Elijah considers denying it, then nods slowly. "Sometimes I know things I shouldn't, feel things I can't explain. Your mother was the same. Strong in the old ways, though she chose a different path." Carla leans closer. "The time approaches when you must decide what path you will walk. I don't want to choose between worlds. Perhaps you need not." Carla glances toward Chief Ahote, who watches them from across the gathering. "The chief and I have spoken. We believe you are ready for the vision quest." Vision quest? A journey to seek guidance, to open doors within that have remained closed. Her expression grows solemn. It is not undertaken lightly. Chief Ahote joins them, his ceremonial regalia marking the day's importance. "The vision quest is offered only to those we believe can bear its revelations," he explains. "Your mother completed hers at your age." A mixture of curiosity and apprehension fills Elijah. "What would I need to do?" "Fast from this moment until tomorrow's dawn," Kayla instructs. "Then journey to the sacred peak alone. There you will remain in solitude until the vision comes." "How will I know if—" "You will know," the chief interrupts gently. The question is whether you are willing to face what is shown. Elijah thinks of Samuel's warnings, his deteriorating health, his stubborn rejection of the village ways. Then he thinks of his mother's medicine pouch, the broken arrowhead, the connections he feels growing stronger each day. I'll do it, he decides. As the celebration winds down, Neshoba leads Elijah to a small sweat lodge at the village edge. To prepare your body, he explains. The vision quest demands strength. The intense heat and steam purify and exhaust him. Afterward, Kyla applies a mixture to his face and hands, a paste of clay and plant material, with a scent that makes his senses sharpen oddly. Vision paint, she explains, to open the eyes that look inward. That night, he sleeps in the village for the first time, in a small dwelling set aside for his use. His dreams are vivid, fragmented, running through forests, flying above mountains, diving into depths where strange lights pulse. He wakes before dawn, his body hungry, but his mind strangely clear. Kala and Chifa-Hoti await him at the village edge. They speak blessings in their language, words Elijah understands now not just in meaning, but in essence. Follow the path marked by the hawkstones, the chief instructs. At the summit, find the circle. Remain within it until the vision comes, no matter how long it takes. Return only when you are ready, Kayla adds. We will watch for you. The path upward is steep, but clearly marked by stones bearing hawk carvings. As Elijah climbs higher, the forest thins, giving way to rocky terrain. The vision paint on his skin seems to tingle, heightening his awareness of every sound, scent, and sensation. The summit reveals itself. A flat expanse of stone with a perfect view in all directions. At its center, a circle of smaller stones marks the sacred space. Elijah steps inside and sits cross-legged, facing east where the sun now crests the distant ridges. Hours pass. Hunger and thirst recede from his awareness. The sun arcs overhead, then begins its western descent. Elijah remains still, his mind gradually emptying of thought, focusing only on breath and heartbeat. As shadows lengthen, a subtle shift occurs. The boundary between himself and his surroundings begins to blur. The wind, through sparse trees, sounds increasingly like whispered voices. The stones around him seem to pulse with subtle light. A hawk circles overhead, its cry piercing the stillness. Elijah watches it entranced. When he returns his gaze to the horizon, the landscape has changed. The modern world has fallen away. The forests below, spread unbroken by human presence, pristine and ancient. From the trees emerges a wolf, massive, silver-gray, its eyes reflecting an intelligence beyond animal instinct. It approaches without fear, stopping at the circle's edge. You carry two bloodlines, it speaks, though its mouth doesn't move. Two paths of power. Who are you? Elijah asks, unsurprised somehow by the conversation. Guide, guardian, the form matters less than the message. The wolf circles him, each step seeming to shift the world further. Elijah glimpses scenes like windows into other times. His mother as a young woman participating in village ceremonies, his grandfather, younger but recognizable, carving protective symbols with desperate haste. His own birth during a thunderstorm that shook the mountains. Your blood remembers what your mind cannot, the wolf continues. The old powers diminish in the world, but in some they run strong still. What does that mean for me? Bridge builder, boundary walker, the divided must be reunited before the coming storm. What storm? Instead of answering, the wolf stops suddenly, ears alert. It turns toward the forest below, a growl building in its throat. Danger approaches both your worlds, it warns. Ancient safeguards weaken. What was separated must be rejoined, but not all wish this healing. The vision begins to fragment. The wolf's form shimmers, its final words fading. Remember the unity of all paths. Trust what flows in your veins. With jarring suddenness, Elijah returns to himself. Night has fallen. Stars wheel overhead. His body feels simultaneously exhausted and energized. As if currents of lightning flow beneath his skin, he rises unsteadily, knowing with certainty that he has received what he came for, though its full meaning remains elusive. As he begins the descent, a distant howl echoes from the valley, a wolf's call, answered by others of its pack, real or echo of his vision. The boundary between worlds seems thinner now, more permeable, and Elijah senses that he stands astride that boundary, 1 foot in each realm, exactly where he's meant to be. Dawn breaks as Elijah descends the mountain path. The vision quest has altered something fundamental within him. Boundaries between what he once considered real and impossible now seem arbitrary, like lines drawn in sand. The wolf's warnings echo in his mind, urgent yet cryptic. The village awaits his return. Kala and Chief Ahote stand at the boundary stones, their expressions expectant. Behind them, Kimi watches anxiously. "You have seen," Kala states rather than asks, studying his face. Elijah nods, finding words inadequate to describe his experience. "A wolf spoke to me, showed me things." The elders exchange significant glances. "The wolf has not appeared to one of our people in 2 generations, Chief Ahote says quietly. "It came last to your mother." This connection to his mother strikes Elijah profoundly. It spoke of danger, a coming storm. "Tell us everything," the chief urges. Elijah recounts his vision as accurately as possible. The ancient forest, the silver wolf, the warnings about weakening boundaries and approaching danger. With each detail, the elder's expressions grow more concerned. When he finishes, Chief Ahote places a hand on his shoulder. "You must rest now. The vision quest demands much of body and spirit." "I can't," Elijah responds. "My grandfather is waiting. I've been gone all night." Reluctance crosses the chief's face, but he nods. "Then go to him, but return tomorrow. We must discuss what your vision means for all of us." Kimi walks with him to the hidden passage. "The wolf is the most powerful spirit guide," she says. "It appears only to those with the strongest connection to the old ways. My grandfather would say it was just exhaustion and hunger causing hallucinations." She gives him a knowing smile. "And what do you say?" He considers the question seriously, "that there are more ways of knowing than I understood before." At the cabin, Samuel sits on the porch, rifle across his knees, an unusual sight during peaceful times. His face is haggard from what appears to be another sleepless night. "Where were you?" he demands as Elijah approaches. His eyes narrow at the faint remnants of vision paint still visible on his grandson's skin. "I stayed at the village," Elijah answers honestly. "There was a ceremony." "Not just any ceremony," Samuel says, his voice tight with barely controlled emotion. "The vision quest. I can see the paint." Elijah's surprise must show on his face. "Yes, I know their ways," Samuel continues bitterly. "Better than you might think." He stands with effort. "Come inside. It's time you knew everything." In the cabin, Samuel retrieves a metal box from beneath the floorboards, not the wooden one that held his mother's medicine pouch, but something older, its surface scratched and dented. "Sit," he commands. Elijah obeys, watching as his grandfather unlocks the box with a key kept around his neck. "Your mother was special," Samuel begins, voice softer now. "Even among the Arrow clan, her gifts were exceptional. She could sense things before they happened, find things lost for generations, heal with more than just herbs and poultices." From the box, he removes a photograph Elijah has never seen, his mother as a young woman, standing proudly beside an older woman who bears a striking resemblance to Carla. Both wear ceremonial dress. "Her initiation day," Samuel explains, "after her own vision quest. You were there?" Elijah asks, studying the image hungrily. "I was. I met your mother when I was researching native traditions for the university. An anthropologist with more curiosity than sense." A ghost of a smile touches his lips. "She was assigned as my guide. The clan permitted limited documentation of their non-sacred practices." This revelation staggers Elijah. "You were an anthropologist? Not just a mountain hermit?" "Life takes unexpected turns, boy." Samuel coughs painfully. "Your mother and I fell in love, against both our world's expectations. When she chose to leave with me, there was conflict. The elders didn't want her to go. Some didn't. Others, like Ahoti's father, respected her choice. Samuel's expression darkens, but one faction believed her gifts belonged solely to the clan, that letting her bloodline leave threatened their future. Another photograph emerges, Samuel and Sarah standing before a small chapel, wedding clothes simple, but faces radiant. "We built a life in the outside world. I taught at the university." She adapted, though the separation from her people was difficult. His voice catches. "When you were born, her joy was complete. But so was the clan's sense of loss." Samuel falls silent, struggling with the next part of the story. Finally, he continues. "When you were 6, we received word that the clan's elder healer was dying. Your mother felt compelled to return, to say goodbye. I feared it was a trap, but she insisted." He removes a final photograph, the three of them together on what Elijah recognizes as the mountain road leading to their current home. On the return journey, the storm came from nowhere. Unnaturally fierce, the road washed away beneath our truck. His hands tremble. "I managed to pull you free, but your mother, the current was too strong." "You believe someone from the village caused the storm," Elijah says, the accusation from their earlier conversation now making painful sense. "Not everyone there. Perhaps not even many. But someone with power. Samuel's certainty is absolute. I brought you here to this remote place, carved the old protection symbols I'd studied, kept you safe from my own blood, my own heritage, from those who would use you for your bloodline. Your potential power," Samuel grasps Elijah's hands. "The vision quest awakens what sleeps in the blood. They know this. Why do you think they were so eager for you to undertake it?" Conflicting emotions war within Elijah, loyalty to his grandfather versus the connection he's felt with the village, the wolf's warnings versus Samuel's fears. "The wolf spoke of danger coming to both worlds," he says finally. "Of boundaries weakening." Samuel's expression shifts subtly. "What else did it say?" "That I'm meant to be a bridge between worlds. That what was divided must be reunited." The old man closes his eyes briefly, as if in pain or resignation. "Then it has begun already." He returns the photographs to the box, except for the one of Elijah's mother in ceremonial dress, which he presses into his grandson's hands. "Keep this. Remember that whatever else she was your mother first. She died trying to protect you." He closes the metal box with finality. "The choice of which path to walk now lies with you. But remember, not all in the village share the same vision for your future." Outside, clouds gather on the horizon, unusually dark for the season. Within Elijah, questions multiply like shadows at dusk about his mother, his heritage, the truth behind his parents' death, and most pressingly, about the danger approaching that both his grandfather and the spirit wolf seem to fear from entirely different directions. The following days bring an unnatural chill to the mountains. Though autumn has barely begun its transition toward winter, morning frost appears on fallen leaves, and the stream near the cabin develops thin ice along its edges. Samuel studies the sky with growing concern, his experienced eyes reading signs that speak of weather beyond seasonal. Norms, Elijah divides his time between helping his grandfather prepare the cabin for what increasingly appears to be an early winter and visiting the village, where similar preparations accelerate with urgent purpose. The revelations about his parents have left him with conflicted feelings, yet he finds himself drawn to both worlds, unable to sever either connection. In the village, an atmosphere of quiet tension has replaced the celebration of the harvest ceremony. Elijah notices more frequent council meetings, hushed conversations that cease when he approaches. Scouts returning from far-flung boundary patrols with troubled expressions. Kimmy finds him beside the stream, watching villagers fill water containers with greater quantities than usual. "Something's coming," he says. Not a question, but a statement. She nods, her usual brightness dimmed by concern. The elders say it will be the worst storm in generations. "The signs are clear." "What signs?" She leads him to a flat stone near the village center, unremarkable save for the intricate carvings on its surface. "The weather stone. Our ancestors created it to read patterns in nature that others cannot see. Elijah studies the stone, its symbols similar to those on his mother's medicine pouch. At its center, spiral patterns converge in a way that creates the illusion of movement when viewed from different angles. The inner spiral has darkened, Kimi explains, pointing to a section that does indeed appear deeper in color than the surrounding stone, though no paint or dye is visible. That happens only before the greatest storms. My grandfather sees it too, in his own way, Elijah admits. He's been smokehouse curing extra meat, gathering more firewood than usual. Samuel Mason knows the mountains, she acknowledges. But this is more than ordinary weather. The elders believe boundaries are thinning. The phrase echoes his vision quest so precisely that Elijah startles. Between what? Between worlds. The seen and unseen. The physical and the spiritual. Her voice drops. Some believe it's why you found us when you did. Why the wolf appeared to you after so long an absence. A chill runs through him that has nothing to do with the unseasonable air. What does it mean? Before she can answer, Neshoba approaches with purposeful strides. Chief Ahote requests your presence, he tells Elijah. Immediately. In the chief's dwelling, Elijah finds not only Ahote, but Kala and 2 other elders examining maps drawn on deerhide. They look up at his entrance, expressions grave. Thank you for coming, Chief Ahote says formally. We face an unprecedented situation. Kala gestures to the Weatherstone through the open doorway. The signs speak of a convergence, a time when the barriers between worlds grow thin enough for passage. The last such time was when our ancestors first came to this valley, one of the other elders adds, when they needed sanctuary from those who would destroy our ways. I don't understand, Elijah admits. Chief Ahote's expression softens slightly. No one fully understands such things. But we know this. The storm comes not just from nature, but from beyond it. And when it passes, things will be changed. What should we do? Prepare as best we can. Ahote points to the map. We have sent word to scattered clan members living in the outside world. Many will return before the passes close with snow. The village can't support many more people, Elijah observes, noting the limited dwellings. We have shelters prepared in the deep caves, Kala explains, used in times of greatest need. A thought strikes Elijah with sudden clarity. My grandfather should come here too. The cabin is strong, but if this storm is as powerful as you believe, Samuel Mason would refuse our shelter. Neshoba interrupts. He might, Elijah acknowledges, but I have to try. He's been getting weaker, sicker. The elders exchange glances that contain volumes of unspoken communication. Finally, Chief Ahote nods. Your grandfather would be welcome, despite past differences. Family transcends old wounds. As if summoned by their discussion, the wind rises suddenly, rattling the dwelling's door. Outside, clouds mass on the horizon, dark and heavy with promised snow. Go to him, Kala urges. The storm approaches faster than we anticipated. Bring him here if you can. Take this, Chief Ahote adds, removing a small pouch from around his neck. A token of safe passage that even Samuel Mason will recognize. Elijah accepts the pouch, surprised by its weight. Inside, he glimpses a stone amulet carved with the same symbols that appear on the boundary markers. The return journey to the cabin proves more difficult than any previous trip. The wind has strengthened to a constant howl, driving sleet rather than rain. The temperature drops with each passing hour. Twice, Elijah loses the path, forced to rely on instinct rather than visible markers. He arrives to find Samuel on the porch, loading his rifle with grim determination. Get inside, the old man calls over the wind. Storm's coming faster than natural. That's why I'm here, Elijah shouts back, climbing the steps with numb fingers. We need to go to the village. They're preparing shelters. No. Samuel's refusal is absolute. We stay here. Grandfather, please. This isn't an ordinary storm. Even you can see that. Samuel's weathered face reveals a complex mixture of fear, determination, and pain. Exactly why we should avoid their territory. This is their doing, Not all of them, Elijah protests. Chief Ahote himself invited you. A bitter laugh escapes Samuel. Of course he did. Now that the boundaries weaken, they need what I've protected all these years. They're concerned about your health too, Elijah insists, desperation growing as the sky darkens further. We'll be safer there. Samuel's expression softens slightly. You believe that because you don't understand what's really happening. He looks toward the western ridge, now obscured by churning clouds. But I won't let you face it alone. He turns, enters the cabin, and begins gathering essentials. His journal, medicines, extra ammunition. If we're going, he says reluctantly, we leave now, before the passes close completely. Relief washes through Elijah, tempered immediately by the howling wind and the first heavy snowflakes beginning to fall. As they shoulder their packs and secure the cabin, the storm's unnatural darkness transforms afternoon into deepest twilight. Whatever awaits in the hidden village, they will face it together, two worlds colliding as surely as the storm fronts gathering above the mountain. The journey through deepening snow and howling wind tests both Elijah and Samuel to their limits. What normally takes Elijah an hour stretches to 3 as they fight against the unnatural storm. Samuel struggles visibly, his breathing labored, stopping frequently to cough into his handkerchief. We should have left sooner, Elijah says during one such pause. Supporting his grandfather's weight, Samuel looks up at the roiling sky, his expression complex. Or not at all, he mutters, but continues forward. Near the hidden passage, Neshoba appears suddenly through the curtain of snow, accompanied by 2 younger men. We've been watching for you, he says, reaching for Samuel's pack. The storm accelerates beyond prediction. Samuel stiffens at the scout's proximity, but allows the assistance. His eyes meet Neshoba's with a flicker of recognition. Still the tribe's watchman, I see. Some things don't change, Professor Mason. The formal address carries weighted history. The group makes better progress with the additional help. When they reach the vine-covered entrance, Samuel hesitates, decades of avoidance warring visibly with necessity. For me, Elijah urges quietly. Please. With obvious reluctance, Samuel steps through into the hidden ravine. The village beyond has transformed since Elijah's last visit. Additional structures have appeared, temporary shelters reinforcing existing dwellings. The central area teems with activity as people secure possessions against wind and prepare for evacuation to the deeper caves Carla mentioned. Conversations pause as villagers notice Samuel's arrival. Elders who had maintained dignified distance during Elijah's previous visits now approach, their faces showing complex emotions, recognition, wariness, and something like vindication. Chief Ahote emerges from his dwelling, his formal regalia replaced by practical winter clothing. He walks directly to Samuel, stopping at a respectful distance. "Samuel Mason," he says, voice carrying over the wind. "It has been many seasons, not by my choice." Samuel responds stiffly, "Yet here you stand." The chief gestures toward a large dwelling near the sacred fire. "Come, warmth and safety await while the storm passes." Inside the dwelling, Kyla tends a fire that burns with unusual brightness despite the damp conditions. She looks up as they enter, her ancient eyes widening at the sight of Samuel. "So the circle completes," she says quietly. Samuel's jaw tightens. "Necessity, not reconciliation, brings me here, Kala. The reason matters less than the result." She gestures to prepared pallets near the fire. "Rest, especially you, old friend. Your spirit fights your body's weakness." Samuel lowers himself with obvious relief, though his expression remains guarded. Elijah helps remove his wet outer clothing, alarmed at how thin his grandfather has become beneath the layers. Kimmy enters carrying steaming drinks in clay cups. She offers one to Samuel with formal respect. "For strength and warmth, Elder Mason." Samuel accepts with surprise at the title. He sniffs the liquid suspiciously before taking a cautious sip. His eyebrows rise slightly at the taste, a momentary relaxation crossing his features. "Your mother's recipe," Kayla explains. "Sarah was our finest healer before she left. Outside, the storm's fury increases. Wind howls through the ravine with voices that seem almost human. The dwelling's walls, though sturdy, vibrate with each gust. Chief Ahote enters with several elders Elijah recognizes from council meetings. They arrange themselves in a circle, their formal positioning making clear this is no casual gathering. "Now that you are here," the chief begins, addressing Samuel directly, "we must speak of what comes." "I know what comes," Samuel replies sharply. The boundaries weaken. The storm tears at the veil between worlds. Yes, Ahote seems unsurprised by Samuel's knowledge. "But do you know why now? Why after all these years of stability?" Samuel's gaze flickers to Elijah, then back to the chief. "Because of him. Because his power awakens." Elijah starts at this direct reference to him. "What power?" "I don't understand." Kayla rises slowly, crosses to a carved chest in the corner, and removes a staff wrapped in protective cloth. She unwraps it carefully to reveal an artifact of obvious age and significance. A wooden staff topped with a crystalline stone, intricate symbols carved along its length. "The chief's staff," she announces, "carried by leaders of the Arrow clan since our people first came to this valley. It responds only to those of true lineage and true heart." She presents it to Chief Ahote, who holds it with reverence before turning to Elijah. "Among our people, leadership passes not simply by blood, but by calling," he explains. "The staff recognizes those with the gift to bridge worlds, the seen and unseen, the physical and spiritual, the past and future." "What does this have to do with me?" Elijah asks, though a growing certainty builds within him. "Touch it," Ahote instructs, extending the staff. Samuel rises suddenly, surprising everyone with his speed despite his weakness. "Don't," he warns Elijah. "Once you accept this path, there's no returning." "I only want to understand," Elijah says, his hand already reaching forward. His fingers connect with the ancient wood. Immediately, the crystal at its top illuminates from within, casting prismatic light throughout the dwelling. Symbols along the shaft glow in sequence, spiraling from bottom to top. Gasps rise from the gathered elders. Kala murmurs something that sounds like a prayer. Chief Ahote's expression mingles awe with confirmation. "It has never responded so strongly," he says quietly. "Not even to your mother." Samuel sinks back to his pallet, resignation replacing resistance. "Then it's as I feared. The convergence centers on him. What does it mean?" Elijah asks, still holding the staff, feeling energy pulse through it in rhythm with his heartbeat. "It means you are the bridge," Kala answers. "The one who can restore what was sundered generations ago, when our people first sought refuge in this hidden place. The storm comes because you have awakened to your heritage," Chief Ahote continues. "The boundaries between worlds have grown too rigid, too separate. They must be rebalanced, and if they're not..." Elijah looks between the elders and his grandfather. Samuel answers, his voice heavy with knowledge he's carried too long alone. "Then both worlds suffer. The seen and unseen must exist in balance, not separation. My mistake was believing isolation could prevent what must inevitably come." He meets Elijah's eyes directly. "Your mother understood this better than I did. She tried to bridge worlds through our family. Through you." Outside, a thunderous crack splits the air as a massive tree surrenders to the storm's fury. The dwelling trembles with the impact. "The time for preparation ends," Chief Ahote announces. "We must move to the deep caves before the worst arrives." As villagers gather essentials for evacuation, Samuel motions Elijah closer. "I've kept things from you," he admits quietly, "believing it was protection. But now I see it was fear. Fear of losing you as I lost your mother." "I'm not going anywhere," Elijah assures him. "No," Samuel agrees, a new resolve settling over his features. "You're exactly where you need to be. Where perhaps we both needed to be all along." The staff in Elijah's hand pulses once more with inner light, illuminating the faces of his past and present. Samuel, Kayla, Ahote, Gimme, all connected now in the approaching convergence of worlds too long divided. Evacuation to the deep caves proceeds with practiced efficiency despite the storm's escalating fury. Children and elders go first, guided by experienced adults along a narrow path that winds behind the village into the mountain's heart. Elijah helps Samuel navigate the treacherous route. Concerned by his grandfather's increasingly labored breathing, the caves reveal themselves as far more than simple shelters. Generations of the Arrow clan have prepared these spaces with stone sleeping platforms, storage areas for food and medicine, even a central area where a smaller version of the sacred fire burns in a carefully ventilated chamber. Our ancestors knew that some storms require deeper refuge, Chief Ahote explains as they settle Samuel on a prepared pallet. These caves have sheltered the clan through many seasons of challenge. Outside, the unnatural storm transforms day into blackest night. Wind howls through the ravine with voices that seem to form words just beyond comprehension. Lightning strikes with increasing frequency, illuminating the cave entrance with flashes of purple-white brilliance. Carla organizes the distribution of provisions while younger members secure the cave entrance against wind and snow. Despite the circumstances, the evacuation maintains remarkable order, evidence of a community accustomed to facing adversity together. Samuel watches the proceedings with anthropologists' eyes, professional interest momentarily overriding physical discomfort and personal history. Your emergency protocols have evolved since my last observation, he comments to Carla. Much has changed in 16 years, she replies without recrimination. Yet much remains as it always was. Their conversation is interrupted by commotion at the cave entrance. Nashoba enters with 2 scouts, supporting between them a stranger, a man in modern outdoor gear, his face bloodied, one leg dragging uselessly. Found him half buried in snow near the eastern boundary, Nashoba reports to Chief Ahote. The storm had him disoriented, walking in circles. The stranger, a white man perhaps in his 30s, looks around with evident shock at the assembled villagers. Thank God, he gasps through chattering teeth. I thought I was going to die out there. Villagers make space as the scouts help him to an empty pallet. Guyla approaches with medicinal supplies, her healer's instincts overriding caution toward outsiders. What brings you to these mountains during storm season? Chief Ahote asks, his tone neutral but watchful. Survey work, the man answers, wincing as Carla examines his injured leg. Parker Daniels, Geological Survey for Mountain Vista Development. Was supposed to meet my team at the North Ridge yesterday, but this storm came out of nowhere. Never seen anything like it. A ripple of concern passes through the gathered villagers. Elijah notices several elders exchange meaningful glances. You're very far from established trails, Samuel observes. Studying the stranger with evident suspicion. Got turned around in the whiteout, Parker explains. GPS failed. Never would have found this place if your people hadn't rescued me. He looks around with growing curiosity. Didn't know there was a settlement up here. Not on any maps I've seen. We prefer our privacy, Chief Ahote states simply. Kayla finishes bandaging the stranger's leg. Nothing broken but badly strained. You should not walk on it for several days. Several days? Parker looks alarmed. My team will be searching for me. In this storm, no one searches, Nashoba says flatly. No one travels. We all wait. As if confirming his words, a thunderous crack echoes through the mountain, followed by a sound like distant avalanche. The cave trembles slightly. Parker fumbles with his backpack, retrieving a satellite phone. Need to call this in. Let them know I'm alive at least. He frowns at the display. No signal. Of course. Technology functions poorly here, even in good weather, Samuel comments. The stranger sets the phone aside and reaches instead for a waterproof case, removing documents and maps. Elijah, helping distribute food nearby, catches a glimpse of detailed topographical surveys of the surrounding mountains, including the hidden ravine where the village stands. You've already mapped this area, he observes. Parker looks up, momentarily surprised. Preliminary aerials only. That's why I'm here, ground confirmation before the project. Advances, he unfolds a larger document, a development plan with Mountain Vista Luxury Resort emblazoned across the top. The key. Sight sends a chill through Elijah that has nothing to do with the storm. You're planning to build here? Not exactly here, Parker corrects, seemingly oblivious to the sudden tension in the cave. But the valley and surrounding ridges, yes. Perfect for an exclusive resort. Untouched wilderness, spectacular views, natural hot springs nearby. Chief Ahote steps forward, his face impassive but his eyes sharp. These mountains are not for development. This land is protected. Protected? Parker looks confused. There's no national park designation here. Our legal team has confirmed the land is available for purchase from the state. The protection is older than your state, Kayla interjects, her ancient voice carrying surprising authority. Older than your nation. The stranger's confusion shifts toward defensiveness. Look, I'm just the survey guy. The development is happening. Phase 1 begins next spring. Access roads, initial construction. Samuel moves closer, examining the maps with growing concern. Your planned access road cuts directly through the ravine. It's the only feasible route through these mountains, Parker confirms, pointing to the survey. Engineering has already approved the preliminary design. A heavy silence falls over the cave, broken only by the continuing howl of the supernatural storm outside. The Arrow clan members look to Chief Ahote, whose composed exterior barely contains obvious concern. We have provided shelter and care, he says formally to Parker. In return, we ask that you respect our privacy while you heal. These matters can be discussed when the storm passes. The stranger nods, clearly sensing the shift in atmosphere, but misreading its significance. Of course, and I appreciate the rescue. Wouldn't have survived another hour out there. As villagers return to evacuation tasks, Elijah joins Samuel, Kyla, and Chief Ahote in a quieter corner of the cave. This is no coincidence, Samuel says softly. The boundary weakening, the storm, this development threat, all converging now. The wolf spoke of danger to both worlds, Elijah reminds them. Could this be what it meant? Chief Ahote studies the stranger across the cave. Perhaps, or perhaps something worse, approaches that we cannot yet see. Kayla's weathered hand closes around the small medicine pouch at her neck. The storm within and the storm without, she murmurs. Both must be faced before balance returns. Outside, lightning illuminates the cave entrance once more, revealing for a brief moment a landscape transformed beyond recognition. Ancient trees bent horizontal, snow driving sideways with unnatural force. And within the chaotic patterns of the storm, shapes that seem to move with deliberate purpose. The boundaries between worlds continue to thin as the Arrow clan faces threats from both the mystical storm and the modern world. With Elijah standing at the convergence point of forces set in motion generations before his birth. Night passes with the storm's fury undiminished. The cave provides physical safety, but sleep comes fitfully amidst howling winds that seem to carry distant voices. By morning, though darkness still reigns outside, tension permeates the shelter as villagers process the dual threats facing their community. Chief Ahote calls a council meeting in a smaller adjoining cave chamber. Elijah is invited, as is Samuel, whose anthropological knowledge of tribal legal rights might prove valuable. Kala brings a weathered scroll container carved from cedar, its surface worn smooth by generations of handling. The village covenant, she explains, removing an ancient document protected by layers of treated hide. The original agreement between our ancestors and the spirits of this land when they first sought sanctuary here. The text appears in faded pictographs and symbols similar to those Elijah has seen on boundary stones and ceremonial objects. Chief Ahote carefully unrolls it across a flat stone surface. Our ancestors fled those who would destroy our ways, he explains. They sought a place between worlds where the Arrow clan could preserve ancient knowledge. The spirits granted this hidden valley in exchange for our promise to maintain the balance between realms and protect the thin places where worlds touch. This development threatens not just our physical community, but the boundary itself, Kayla adds. If the ravine is destroyed, the consequences extend beyond our people. The council debates options with measured voices, but evident concern. Some argue for reaching out to government authorities with claims of indigenous rights. Others believe remaining hidden offers better protection. A few suggest more mystical approaches to deter the developers. We should guide this Parker away from the ravine once the storm passes, one elder proposes. Ensure he never finds his way back. His company already has aerial surveys, Samuel counters. They know this valley exists, even if they don't yet know about the village. More surveyors will come. Then we must claim legal protection, another suggests. Which would require legal recognition, Samuel explains. Census records, documentation, the very visibility your ancestors sought to avoid. Throughout the discussion, Elijah notices a faction of younger council members growing increasingly restless. Finally, one speaks up, a man perhaps in his 30s, whom Elijah recognizes as a skilled hunter. For generations, we've hidden while the outside world grows stronger, he argues. We've protected the boundary through ritual and sacrifice while our numbers dwindle. Perhaps this convergence is telling us that isolation has reached its end. Murmurs of both agreement and dissent ripple through the council. Chief Ahote raises a hand for silence. Makia speaks from sincere concern for our future, he acknowledges. But abandoning our covenant has consequences beyond our understanding. I'm not suggesting abandonment, Makia clarifies, but adaptation. The world has changed. Perhaps our methods must change too. Samuel surprises everyone by nodding slowly. There's wisdom in that view, he says. I once believed complete separation was the only protection. I was wrong. All eyes turn to Elijah, who has remained silent throughout the debate. The weight of their expectation presses upon him, not just as Sarah Blackfeather's son or Samuel's grandson, but as someone the chief's staff recognized. I stand between worlds, he begins hesitantly, then continues with growing certainty. My mother tried to bridge them, not to abandon tradition, but to help it survive in new forms. He looks at the ancient covenant, its symbols somehow readable to him despite never having studied them. This doesn't say the Arrow clan must remain hidden forever. It says they must protect the balance. Maybe there's a way to do that while still engaging with the modern world. The boy speaks truth, Carla affirms. The covenant demands protection, not isolation. Outside, thunder crashes with such force that dust sifts from the cave ceiling. The storm seems to respond to their very discussion. We must decide quickly, Chief Ahote notes. When the storm passes, the stranger will leave with knowledge of our existence. Unless we convince him to help us, Elijah suggests, the idea forming as he speaks. Show him why this land must be protected, but on terms the outside world can understand. Ecological preservation, cultural heritage. You suggest trusting an outsider with our future. Makia sounds skeptical. I suggest finding a middle path, Elijah clarifies. One that protects what matters most, while acknowledging that complete isolation may no longer be possible. Samuel's weathered hand comes to rest on his grandson's shoulder. Sarah would be proud, he says quietly. She always saw paths others missed. The council falls silent, considering. Finally, Chief Ahote speaks. There is wisdom in seeking balance rather than extremes. But how do we proceed? Someone must go to the outside world, Elijah says, certainty growing within him. Speak their language, use their laws, while still honoring our ways. Someone who walks between worlds, Kayla murmurs. All eyes return to Elijah. The implication hangs in the air, unspoken but clear. I'm only 12, he protests, though a part of him has already accepted what they're suggesting. Age matters less than understanding, Chief Ahote responds. And you understand both worlds in ways few others can. Samuel's grip on Elijah's shoulder tightens slightly. It's your choice, he says, his voice rough with emotion. It always has been. The storm's howl seems to diminish momentarily, as if listening for his answer. Elijah thinks of his mother's medicine pouch, the broken arrowhead that first led him to the village, the wolf's warning about dangers to both worlds. I'll go, he decides, when the storm passes. But not alone. Relief and concern mingle on the faces around him. Chief Ahote nods solemnly. "The covenant will guide you," he says, carefully rolling the ancient document and returning it to its container. "As it has guided us through generations of challenge." As they exit the council chamber, they find the main cave in commotion. Parker Daniels stands near the entrance, his injured leg clearly still painful, but his curiosity evidently stronger than his discomfort. He holds his satellite phone triumphantly. "Signal came through briefly," he announces. "Got a message out to my team. They're sending a helicopter as soon as the weather breaks." The Arrow clan members exchange troubled glances. The timeline for their decisions has just shortened dramatically. "How soon?" Chief Ahote asks calmly. "Day after tomorrow, weather permitting," Parker replies, oblivious to the impact of his words. "They'll find us using my phone's GPS when the signal returns." Elijah catches Samuel's eye. His grandfather's expression confirms what he already knows. Their window for finding a middle path has just narrowed to hours, not days. Outside, the storm continues its supernatural assault, though something in its rhythm has changed. No longer building, but maintaining, as if gathering strength for whatever comes next when the boundaries between worlds reach their thinnest point. By morning, the supernatural storm begins to abate, though its effects remain visible throughout the ravine, trees twisted into impossible shapes, stones displaced as if by giant hands, streams flowing uphill in defiance of natural law. The Arrow clan emerges cautiously from the caves, assessing damage and beginning repairs with practiced efficiency. In Chief Ahote's dwelling, now partially rebuilt, final preparations are underway for Elijah's journey to the outside world. The plan has evolved quickly out of necessity. He will accompany Parker Daniels when the helicopter arrives, traveling to the nearby town where the development company has established its base of operations. "You must speak with those who have true authority," Ahote advises, spreading a modern map beside the ancient one. Not merely workers following orders. Samuel sits nearby, his breathing better after treatment from Carla, but his face drawn with concern. "The company president is likely in their regional office," he notes, indicating a location on the map. "That's where decisions are made." Elijah studies both maps, memorizing key features. "What exactly am I supposed to say?" "That they can't build because of an ancient covenant with spirits." "You will know when the time comes," Kayla assures him, preparing a small bundle of protective herbs and talismans. "The words will find you." Less confident in spiritual guidance alone, Samuel provides more practical counsel. Environmental regulations may offer the strongest immediate protection. These mountains contain several endangered species. Development requires environmental impact studies that take months, sometimes years. Time we may not have, Ahote observes. "Time enough to find a permanent solution," Samuel counters. "If we can delay the initial construction." Neshoba enters with clothing, gathered from the few village members who occasionally venture into the outside world. Jeans, a flannel shirt, modern boots. "For our blending in," he explains. Elijah changes, the unfamiliar materials feeling stiff and confining after the village's handcrafted garments. When he emerges, Kimmy gasps softly. "You look different," she says, her expression troubled. "Just clothes," he assures her, touching the woven bracelet she gave him, still secure around his wrist. What matters doesn't change. Chief Ahote presents Elijah with a small compass in a polished wooden case. "To find your way in the outside world," he says formally. "May it guide your return as well." The moment carries ceremonial weight, an echo of ancient blessing rituals. Elijah accepts with appropriate reverence, tucking the compass into his pocket. A commotion outside draws their attention. Parker Daniels stands in the village center, examining the damage with professional interest, while speaking into his satellite phone. The signal has returned as the storm's unnatural interference fades. "Confirm coordinates," he's saying. "The entire valley's been hit hard. Never seen storm damage like this." Elijah exchanges glances with Samuel and Ahote. The surveyor hasn't mentioned the village's existence, at least not yet. "I should join him," Elijah says. "Start building trust." As he approaches, Parker ends his call. Helicopters confirmed for tomorrow morning, he informs Elijah. Weather's clearing enough for flight. I'd like to go with you, Elijah states directly. To town. Parker looks surprised. That's not really up to me, kid. Besides, shouldn't you stay with your people? I'm their representative, Elijah explains, the half-truth coming easily. To discuss the development plans with your company. Suspicion crosses Parker's face. What exactly is your stake in this? This community isn't on any registry I've seen. That's part of what we need to discuss, Elijah says carefully. The historical significance of this location. Parker studies him with new interest. You speak pretty well for someone raised out here. My grandfather was a professor, Elijah responds truthfully. Education was important to him. This seems to satisfy the surveyor. I suppose it makes sense to have a local perspective. I'll clear it with my supervisor when the helicopter arrives. As Parker moves away to check his equipment, Kimmy approaches Elijah, her expression troubled. You're really leaving? Not forever, he assures her. Just long enough to protect what matters. She hesitates, then makes a decision. I'm coming with you. What? No, Kimmy, 2 voices are stronger than one, she interrupts. Besides, I've studied the outside world through books in the village library. I know their ways better than you think. It's too dangerous, Elijah protests. More dangerous than staying if the developers come? She challenges. This affects my future too. Before Elijah can respond, Chief Ahote joins them, having overheard. My daughter makes a valid point, he says, surprising both children. 2 representatives from both bloodlines of the Arrow clan carry more weight than one alone. You'd allow this? Elijah asks incredulously. Not without preparation, the chief clarifies, and not without protection. That evening, while Parker rests in preparation for tomorrow's departure, the Arrow clan holds a ceremonial blessing for their young representatives. Elijah and Kimmy sit before the rebuilt sacred fire, as Kayla and other elders tie protective symbols into their hair. Eagle feathers, small carved tokens, beads of specific colors and materials. These mark you as carriers of the covenant, Kayla explains. They will strengthen your connection to this place, no matter how far you travel. Samuel watches the ceremony with mixed emotions evident on his face. When it concludes, he takes Elijah aside. I should be the one going, he says quietly. Not you. Your knowledge is needed here, Elijah reminds him. And your health is failing, Samuel finishes bluntly. We both know it. But that doesn't change my responsibility to protect you. Maybe it's my turn to protect something, Elijah suggests gently. Samuel studies his grandson's face, seeing perhaps for the first time not a child, but something more. Your mother would be proud, he says finally. She always believed worlds could be bridged, not just divided. At dawn, the distant sound of helicopter rotors echoes through the mountains. The village quickly implements its concealment protocols, temporary structures dismantled, evidence of habitation minimized, most people retreating to less visible areas. By the time the aircraft appears above the ravine, only a small contingent remains visible. Elijah, Kimmy, Chief Ahote, Samuel, and Parker. The surveyor waves his bright orange emergency signal. The helicopter descends cautiously to a relatively flat area at the ravine's edge. Remember what you carry, Chief Ahote tells the children formally, both visible and invisible. Samuel embraces Elijah fiercely. Trust your instincts, he whispers. They're better than you know. As they approach the waiting helicopter, its rotor wash whipping their hair and clothing, Elijah feels the weight of the compass in his pocket. When he pulls it out for reassurance, the needle spins wildly, unable to find true north in the boundary between worlds. He glances back at the village, already beginning to blur into natural camouflage, and then forward to the mechanical beast that will carry them into a world of concrete, glass, and legal documents. 2 paths diverging, yet somehow part of the same journey. Kimmy's hand finds his, her grip firm despite the fear he knows she must feel. Together, they step toward the helicopter and whatever awaits them in the world beyond the mountains. The helicopter's thunderous approach to the small mountain town overwhelms Elijah and Kimmy with sensory assault. The deafening rotor wash, vibrations rattling through their bodies, the dizzying perspective of familiar mountains suddenly miniaturized beneath them. They sit rigid, eyes wide, hands gripping their seats with white-knuckled intensity. Parker watches their reactions with amusement. First flight, huh? Don't worry, perfectly safe. When they land at a makeshift helipad near a cluster of temporary buildings bearing Mountain Vista Development logos, a small welcoming committee awaits, company representatives in crisp outdoor wear, looking incongruous against the rugged landscape. Daniels! Thank God! Exclaims a balding man with an expensive watch. When you missed check-in, we feared the worst. His gaze shifts to the children. Who are these locals? Community representatives, Parker explains vaguely. They helped me during the storm. Figure we owe them a meeting, at least. The man, introducing himself as Richardson, project manager, seems skeptical, but pragmatic. Fine. Debrief first, then we'll sort them out. The development headquarters occupies what was once a small-town hotel, now transformed with gleaming technology, architectural models, and wall-sized maps. Elijah and Kimmy follow Parker through this alien landscape of fluorescent lighting and air conditioning, drawing curious stares from employees. Wait here, Richardson instructs, depositing them in a conference room. Someone will be with you shortly. Left alone, Kimmy whispers, they have so many things. My grandfather described cities with buildings taller than mountains, Elijah responds. This is nothing compared to that. The door opens to admit a woman in a tailored suit, her manner businesslike, but not unkind. I'm Victoria Lawson, community liaison. I understand you're from nearby? The Arrow clan, Kimmy states with unexpected confidence. We've inhabited these mountains for countless generations. Victoria's professional smile falters slightly. I see. And you're here regarding our development plans. We're here to stop them, Elijah says directly, deciding directness might serve better than diplomacy. The woman's eyebrows rise, but she maintains composure. That's quite ambitious. Perhaps you could explain your concerns. Elijah reaches into his pocket for the documents Samuel helped prepare, photocopies of historical records and wildlife surveys from his university days. The valley you plan to develop contains endangered species protected by federal law. Golden eagles' nesting sites, rare medicinal plants documented in botanical surveys. Victoria examines the papers with growing interest. This is unexpectedly thorough. The development would also destroy sites of significant cultural importance, Kimmy adds. Sacred to our people. Are you a federally recognized tribe? Victoria asks, her tone shifting to something more cautious. Our recognition comes from a higher authority than your government. Kimmy responds with dignity beyond her years. Before Victoria can reply, the door opens again. Richardson enters with a tall man whose expensive suit and commanding presence mark him as someone of authority. Ms. Lawson, I'll handle this, he says dismissively. I'm Robert Chambers, CEO of Mountain Vista Development. I understand you children have concerns about our project. His condescending tone ignites something in Elijah. We're representatives of the Arrow clan, whose lands you plan to destroy. Chambers studies them with calculation rather than compassion. While I appreciate cultural heritage, this land has been legally acquired through proper channels. Our environmental impact studies are already underway. Studies that conveniently overlook several endangered species, Elijah challenges. Sliding forward the documents Victoria was reviewing, and ignore the sacred sites protected by ancient covenant, Kimmy adds. Chambers barely glances at the papers. I'm afraid unsubstantiated claims from unrecognized groups won't delay a multi-million-dollar investment already approved by state authorities. The dismissal stings, but Elijah persists. The ravine you plan to build through contains a thriving community, living people, not just history. This catches Chambers' attention. Permanent residents? That's not in our surveys, because your surveys are incomplete. Elijah presses the advantage. Your access road would displace dozens of people. If there are actual residents, that changes legal requirements, Victoria interjects, earning a sharp look from her boss. Chambers recovers quickly. Any legitimate residents would be compensated, of course. But unauthorized occupation of state land doesn't create ownership rights. The conversation has veered into legal territory beyond Elijah's preparation. He feels their mission slipping away when the conference room door opens once more. A woman enters, perhaps 50, with silver-streaked dark hair and a briefcase bearing environmental law firm credentials. "I believe I can help clarify some matters," she announces. Elena Whitehawk, attorney. I received an interesting call from a Professor Samuel Mason about potential violations of both environmental protection statutes and indigenous rights. Chambers' expression darkens. "This meeting is private, as is the land you're attempting to develop," Elena counters smoothly. She turns to Elijah and Kimmy. "Professor Mason asked me to provide legal representation for the Arrow clan's interests." Hope surges within Elijah. Samuel had mentioned contacting old colleagues, but he hadn't dared believe help would arrive so quickly. Eleanor opens her briefcase, revealing thick folders of documentation. "I've taken the liberty of filing preliminary injunctions based on incomplete environmental impact studies. Additionally, the Arrow clan's historical presence, predating state formation, creates jurisdictional questions that will take years to resolve in court." She slides a legal document across the table to Chambers. "This cease and desist order prevents any development activities until these matters are settled." The CEO's face flushes with anger. "Our legal team will have this dismissed by morning." "Perhaps," Elena acknowledges calmly. "But they won't dismiss the media interest in a corporation bulldozing endangered species habitat and indigenous sacred sites." She removes a small recorder from her pocket. "I've already scheduled interviews with 3 national outlets." Chambers and Richardson exchange alarmed glances. "The Arrow clan doesn't seek conflict," Elijah says, finding his voice again. "We seek protection for lands that have sustained our people through generations. Surely there are other places to build your resort." Victoria, who has been studying the environmental documentation with growing concern, speaks up. "The Western Ridge offers similar views, without the endangered species complications. We already own adjacent parcels." Chambers' expression suggests this isn't the first time this alternative has been raised. "The cost adjustments would be significant, less significant than years of legal battles and negative publicity." Elena points out pragmatically. A tense silence follows as Chambers visibly calculates options. Finally, he forces a conciliatory smile. "Perhaps we can discuss a mutual accommodation. A modified development plan that respects certain protected areas." While recognizing the Arrow clan's historical stewardship, Elena adds firmly, "That would require proper documentation of exactly what areas are claimed as protected." Richardson interjects. Elijah exchanges glances with Kimmy, both understanding the delicate balance required, providing enough information to secure protection without revealing the village's full nature. "We can establish boundaries," Elijah offers carefully, "with certain conditions regarding privacy and access." As negotiations begin in earnest, Elijah feels the weight of the entire village on his shoulders. Yet alongside that burden, something else grows. The certainty that he stands exactly where he needs to be, between worlds, building the bridge his mother began years before. 3 days of intense negotiations yield results beyond what Elijah dared hope. Mountain Vista Development agrees to redirect their access road away from the ravine, establish a substantial buffer zone around Arrow clan territories, and classify certain areas as protected cultural sites with restricted access. In exchange, the clan will permit limited, guided access to specific ceremonial locations during particular seasons, a compromise that preserves both privacy and heritage. Elena Whitehawk proves invaluable, her legal expertise transforming vague protections into binding agreements with enforceable consequences for violations. Her Lakota heritage gives her unique insight into balancing tradition with pragmatic modern protections. Not perfect, she acknowledges as they review final documents, but solid. This establishes legal recognition without requiring full disclosure of your community's nature. The helicopter journey back to the mountains feels different, no longer terrifying, but exhilarating. Elijah and Kimmy clutch copies of the signed agreements like precious artifacts. Below them, the landscape transforms from town to wilderness. The ravine coming into view still bearing scars from the supernatural storm. Chief Ahote, Samuel, and a small, welcoming party await at the landing site. The relief on their faces speaks volumes as Elijah and Kimmy disembark. Triumphant, "You succeeded," Samuel says, embracing his grandson with unexpected strength. "We found a middle path," Elijah explains as they walk toward the village, describing the negotiations and compromises reached. Chief Ahote listens intently, his expression thoughtful. Legal protection through environmental conservation and cultural heritage. Clever. The outside world protects us, using their own values and systems. "It means some changes," Kimmy cautions. "Occasional guided visits to specific sites at specific times. Change comes whether invited or not," Carla observes, joining them as they reach the village center. "Better to shape it than be shaped by it." The village itself has undergone remarkable transformation in their absence. Storm damage has been largely repaired. More surprisingly, new construction has begun. A simple wooden structure at the ravine's edge, positioned precisely at the boundary between the hidden village and the outer world. "What is this?" Elijah asks, running his hand along the partially completed wall. "A bridge," Samuel answers. "Both literal and symbolic," Chief Ahote nods in agreement. "A meeting place where our world and the outside world can connect on our terms. A place for education, exchange, and mutual protection." The symbolism moves Elijah deeply. "You began building it before knowing if we succeeded. The wolf showed you your path as bridge builder," Kayla says simply. "We had faith you would find the way." That evening, a celebration marks both their successful mission and Samuel's formal reconciliation with the Arrow clan. The old anthropologist sits in a place of honor beside Chief Ahote, decades of estrangement dissolved in shared purpose. "I was wrong to believe isolation was the only protection," Samuel admits as firelight dances across weathered faces. "Sarah understood better than I did the need for balanced connection. And now her son continues her work," Chief Ahote responds, raising a ceremonial cup in Elijah's direction. Later, as celebrations continue, Samuel draws Elijah aside. His breathing seems easier, his movements less pained. Carla's medicines having visible effect. "I've been speaking with Ahote," he says quietly. "About your future." Elijah feels a familiar tension. "I don't want to choose between worlds, grandfather. Nor should you," Samuel surprises him by saying. "You belong to both, as did your mother. What are you suggesting?" "That we relocate our cabin closer to the village. Not within it, but near enough for regular connection." Samuel's expression conveys how significant this concession is for him. "You can continue your education in both traditions. Learn from the elders, while I teach you what the outside world will demand of someone in your unique position." The proposal represents everything Elijah has hoped for, a way to honor both lineages, both traditions. "What about your health?" he asks, the constant worry resurfacing. "Kayla's treatments help," Samuel acknowledges. "And perhaps being closer to your mother's people brings its own healing. For both of us." Across the celebration, Elijah catches Kimmy's eye. She gestures excitedly for him to join a group of young people learning a traditional dance. The once clear line between visitor and villager has blurred. Acceptance replacing wariness. The following morning, Elijah stands on the half-built bridge structure, facing east as dawn breaks over the mountains. The first golden light illuminates both the village behind him and the wider world beyond. The boundary between remains visible but no longer impenetrable, much like the thinning that allowed him to find this place initially. but now intentionally maintained in careful balance. Chief Ahote joins him, gazing thoughtfully at the sunrise. The covenant speaks of guardians who maintain balance between worlds. Each generation faces this challenge differently. What happens now? Elijah asks. We adapt. We preserve what matters most. We build connections that strengthen rather than weaken. The chief smiles. And you continue learning both paths, both traditions. The Arrow clan needs someone who understands the outside world without being consumed by it. And the outside world needs someone who remembers older wisdom, Samuel adds, approaching slowly with Carla's assistance. The modern world faces its own storms. Ancient knowledge offers balance they desperately need. Elijah looks between these representatives of his divided heritage, no longer feeling torn, but integrated. The wolf's guidance echoes in memory, bridge builder, boundary walker. Below them in the ravine, village children play near the sacred fire, while scouts patrol boundaries now legally protected. Above, a golden eagle circles, one of the endangered species whose presence helped secure their sanctuary. And within Elijah, the blood of both worlds flows as one current, no longer divided but unified. From the half-built bridge between worlds, the future stretches before him, challenging, uncertain, but rich with possibility, precisely as his mother would have wanted it.